Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today, reacting to the Roquan Smith trade, traded from the Chicago Bears to the Baltimore Ravens. Second round pick, a fifth round pick, and AJ Klein, the return for Roquan. And look, this guy, he's been rumored to be on the trading block for a while here, Sam. Former first round linebacker, number 8 overall pick. From a PFF grading standpoint, he's been solid. Linebackers are getting attacked across the league. It's challenging putting up good grades in today's NFL. But Roquan, you see the athleticism, you see the flashes. Last week against New England, he was fantastic. The other day against Dallas, not as good. Misses some tackles, out of position and coverage sometimes. But Roquan Smith, a high upside linebacker going to Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is, I think from a Chicago Bears perspective, this makes a ton of sense. Like we've been talking about for a while, are they going to pay Roquan Smith? Should they make him the highest paid linebacker in the NFL? That was the discussion. But evidently, this Bears team is in full rebuild mode, right? They have stripped this franchise back to the bare metal around Justin Fields, and they've sold off every valuable asset they can think of, including Robert Quinn most recently. Roquan Smith was the last guy standing, really. Was somebody that isn't, that's about to be due big money, that isn't on a cheap rookie contract for a long period of time. It makes sense to move him on now because even if he is one of your best players, they're just not in a position where it makes any sense to pay him the kind of contract that he's going to want. Like it doesn't make any sense at all for Chicago, given the way their roster is, to commit giant money to an off-the-ball linebacker. It's just not going to materially make this team better. They need too much. So it makes perfect sense to cash in now when you can, get the couple of draft picks, use them to improve the rest of the team, and then really sort of set about allocating the money to the key foundation pieces of making this thing better. So from a Bears perspective, I think this is the most logical move for them to make. Fits in perfectly with the strategy that they've been doing since Ryan Poles got in the door. And no notes. I think this makes complete sense for them.
Let me finish. Let's go down that Bears path then. I love it as well, right? I mean, they are, no matter how many games they win, and they've snuck some wins out this year, they've got 3. The Bears are in rebuilding mode, and we knew this, right? We've reiterated over and over the lack of draft picks, the lack of cap flexibility. Ryan Poles has done a good job of stripping it and regaining that draft capital, maybe finding a Braxton Jones, a starting left tackle last year in the 5th round, with all of that extra draft capital and all the extra lottery tickets, basically that they grabbed in the draft, and they're continuing to do that. So I think that just it does make a lot of sense from a Bears perspective. And paying a linebacker long term is more of a cherry on the top of a good roster, not the foundational piece. It just can't be. It just cannot be in today's NFL. On the other hand, it's the Ravens are a team where they generally make shrewd investments. I think they've done a nice job of building their secondary. They've had some injury issues there the last couple of years, but I think the moves have been right. The way they've built that defense may have missed on Patrick Queen in the first round a couple years ago, right? He's been a little bit better this year, but kind of all over the place. Roquan Smith at his best is one of the better coverage linebackers in the NFL. He had an 84 grade in that department a couple of years ago. There's some coverage flexibility, some blitzing flexibility. He's very athletic. I like what Roquan can bring to this Baltimore defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think Roquan Smith has a skill set to be a top-tier linebacker. We really liked him coming out of college in the draft. I think he's got the ability to be a better player than he's shown for a lot of his time in Chicago. And I think in the Baltimore defense, he probably has a better chance to show that. I think overall, that defense asks a little bit less of their linebackers. They're not going to put him in as many bad situations. And, they are in a reasonable position of having a few key pieces on that defense relatively cheap on rookie deals for a while. So they have a little bit of flexibility of cash that they can allocate to a guy like Roquan Smith. Because remember, you're not just paying the 2nd and the 5th round pick and AJ Klein to take on Roquan this year and go on your run and try and compete with the Chiefs and the Bills. Like you're paying that kind of collateral because you're going to pick up that deal that the Chicago Bears didn't want to pay him. You're going to be on the hook for that money. So I think the Ravens have the flexibility to get that done with some of the cheaper rookie contracts they're on, but they really do need him to play at the peak of his powers now if they're going to be on the hook for that money, that draft capital, and have this thing work.
Picture it, Sam. Your kicker's lining up for an onside kick. The chances of regaining possession are slim. The stakes are high. Tension's higher. Your pulse, it's racing. He kicks it. You watch as the ball pops up in the air. You can make every play feel this exciting with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. And their unbeatable offers. Right now, new customers can make any $5 NFL bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Check it out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. To make things even sweeter, you could throw down on those stepped-up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place a $5 bet on any football game only at DraftKings Sportsbook using the code PFF. Do you think it's too much to invest if you're the Ravens? Because we're talking a second, a fifth, and the money, like you're saying. The same money we're saying, hey, the Bears aren't in position to do that because they just don't have any foundational pieces on their roster. Don't start with a linebacker. The Ravens are certainly further along, but we're still talking a lot of money for a position that I don't know if it's been devalued. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but when you have a good linebacker, it is valuable in today's NFL, but it's still going to be a big investment here for Roquan Smith.
I think it kind of depends how he's going to play. The second and the fifth, I think, is fine. Like, that's not a ton for a guy like Roquan Smith if he becomes the player that you think he can be. The big thing is going to be what that contract looks like and just how expensive that's going to wind up being for them. But then the other thing is they do need him to play at his best. And we've seen Roquan Smith kind of all over the map. We've seen him play at a Pro Bowl level. We've seen him play at a pretty, rough level where he's earning PFF grades in the 30s and the 40s and out of position constantly and getting wrecked behind in coverage and all these kinds of things. If he plays like that, then it's not a good investment at all. But if they can get him hitting his higher end play consistently, then the other question is that even possible for a linebacker in today's NFL? Like, Fred Warner isn't playing at the level he played when he was the best linebacker in the NFL. Eric Kendricks was the best coverage linebacker in the NFL for a couple of seasons and isn't playing anywhere near that level at the moment. So we might be in this world now where I don't even know if off-the-ball linebackers can consistently play at a level where they're like the top guy in the league for 3, 4, 5 years, the majority of a contract. That's its own concern. But if they can get him playing somewhere near that level, then maybe, because Baltimore is in a much better spot than Chicago with the rest of their roster.
Yeah, like we saw Luke Kuechly and Bobby Wagner essentially be that guy for for extended periods of time. But we haven't had, if you ask people who the best linebacker is in the NFL, there is no more consensus. If you look at PFF grading, it does tend to fluctuate a little bit. If Roquan has a weakness, it's in the run game. He will get blocked at the second level. He will be out of position there. As I mentioned, there have been times where he's been outstanding in coverage, right? And I do think what you said earlier, the Ravens scheme probably allows that flexibility. And we're thinking about who do the Ravens have to beat. We talk about the Chiefs and the Bills, the rest of that AFC North. You do need that versatility, the ability to play zone, but also to match up with running backs, and then maybe to spy, right? I mean, you're not paying the guy a ton of money in giving up draft capital just to be a spy, but for that game plan flexibility to spy Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, to be a part of those game plans where the Ravens have to adjust their game a little bit. They have not been able to beat the Chiefs. They've had to change their blitz heavy ways against Mahomes. They have to make some adjustments, to beat Josh Allen and the Bills. And I think Roquan Smith at least gives them some flexibility in some of those matchups that they have to win if they're ever going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, he should be an upgrade. Like, that part, I think, is fairly unquestionable. Like, he's a better linebacker than Patrick Queen has been for his career since he came into the league. He gives you a broader skill set. He allows you to do more things. That part, I think, is fairly cut and dry. The question is simply, like, does it end up becoming good value or not? And that's really dependent on, how he ends up playing, what that contract ends up being, and then is that a smart way to allocate your money in today's NFL? I think those are all kind of up in the air right now. Those are all going to depend on what happens going forward, as opposed to something you can just nail in the ground right now and say, declaratively yes or no.
All right, let's sum it up like this. Great job by the Bears getting something for Roquan Smith as part of their rebuild. As far as the Ravens, I think it's a high upside play. To your point, it's not a cop-out, but you're basically saying, hey, let's see how he plays. We'll let you know if it's worth it. But it's the truth. Roquan, he's had a bit of an up and down career. If they get the high end of good from Roquan Smith, though, could be a home run for the Ravens in their quest to win a Super Bowl and win the AFC.